Are for forearm and wrist injuries. They are not for elbow injuries. Okay, they don't adequately immobilize the elbow, so even with a splint. So this is for forearm and distal. And the key here is to make sure you immobilize the wrist, but don't come too far out on the fingers. So I rarely get the length right on the first shot. So. I can probably reuse those. We're going to wind up reusing a lot of aces on here too. Let me see what I got. So this is a really good one to have somebody holding for you. So normally the kid would be on their back, somebody's holding the fingers, holding the arms, so they're not doing this and moving around. Depends on the age, but you can see that I got that a little bit too long, so I'm gonna actually do the cheater move and come in here and cut it out. Do you have buckets of water from when we start putting casts on? I don't yet now, but I was just thinking about that as I was coming in. So again, I'm getting the other cheat way to get in the OR, we just tug on it real hard. Mostly because it tends to already be starting to get hard, but so elbows 90, you're coming like this. You can fold, so most of what's folded over in this case is just the padding, okay? The fiberglass actually ends right at our MCP joints. Same thing back here. So the fiberglass is ending right here. So it's immobilizing her wrist, but she's still able to use her fingers. We see a lot of kids come in with their whole hand splinted, and you know, is it the end of the world? No, but they get awful finger jam in there, and then they take the splint off, and they're stiff, and it's gross. So, and we got it wet. I do not cut a thumb hole. So some people you'll see will cut a hole in the A-strap for the thumb. We teach our residents not to do that because they get a really bad sore when they swell against it right here. So I think what the better move is to do this and to do it a little bit loose right here, because the other place they'll get a sore is right here on their thumb if it's too tight, right? So this doesn't have to be super tight, it just has to keep it on there, right? And then make sure you're up past the elbow so it's not doing that funky thing like this, if you can. And that's pretty much all you have to do. And if you're molding for a distal radius, you know, if you need to do something to mold it, you just kind of give it a little bit of forward usually. But I always like to make sure the thumb has enough room to move, but the wrist is still immobilized. Do you guys see that? Mm-hmm. So they can pretty much make a fist. This will become important when you put casts on as well. And then usually you supplement this with a sling. And the trick with a sling is most kids come in, if you put a sling on them and no safety pin, they come in, the sling's on the back of their neck. So if you're gonna use a sling, put it in, put the elbow all the way into the sling, put a safety pin right here to pin the two pieces of fabric together so the sling doesn't slide around. That's a good trick.
So you just go over when would you use a short arm versus a sugar thumb? Really different.
Bowler slab, you mean? Or cast, short arm cast.
Short arm splint, if you're going to splint a short arm splint versus a sugar thumb.
We don't do a whole lot of, and our residents don't either do a whole lot of just bowler slab orthoglass splints. I think for like if you were in a situation like a buckle fracture and you didn't have a brace, and brace is your first move for that, right? But if you didn't have a brace, a bowler slab would be fine. Some very, very stable distal radius fracture would be fine to do that with. You wouldn't want anything that was, you know, dubiously stable to be in something that was only one side, which is where you get that in.
So almost everything else would be sugar thumb.
Yeah, yeah. We use these pretty much exclusively, but a volar slab is okay for the very stable distal radius injuries. You wouldn't want to use a volar slab for a forearm injury, so it'd just be wrist.
Okay.
So let's reuse this. Yeah. Any questions on the sugar tongue? When to use? Okay.
So that's interesting. You don't put anything between the thumb and the pointer. You just leave that open.
No, I've seen two. I've seen.
We're peeling it out of them.
Yeah.
That's great.
And if you put padding here, it's gone by the time they, you know, 2 days later. So I just have seen so many sores right here
Yeah.
and here that I'm really cautious about
It
using
seems
those
way more
sores.
comfortable for them just to be
Yeah.
free like that.
But you have to make sure it's tight enough at the fracture.
So they're not slipping out.
You know, windshield wipering around all over the place. It's kind of the take home with a cast too. You want to have a good mold on your cast, otherwise it's like a tube and it just slides off, right?